Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm the Savvy Daughter, and I have some news to tell you guys today. We have moved, my family and I have moved from Paris, Tennessee to Florence, Alabama. So we moved about 125 miles south, and we now live in the very northwest corner of Alabama. And so I'm very excited about that. We are learning how to start a whole new life. I've never done that before. We moved to Paris when I was 6 years old, so I've never really known anywhere else besides there, and we've lived there for 9 years, so I'm learning how to start over here. And I relate to Ruth more than ever now because she moved from Moab to Israel, and she didn't know anybody in Israel. She didn't know anything about Israel, and now I'm kind of in the same situation. So I'm excited to wrap up the story of Ruth today and finish up in Ruth chapter 4, which is my favorite chapter out of the whole book of Ruth. And I'm excited to share with you guys what's been going on in my life in future videos, and I hope y'all stay tuned, but I just wanted to let y'all know what was going on. Now let's get into Ruth chapter 4. I have done videos explaining Ruth chapter 1, Ruth chapter 2, and Ruth chapter 3 previously, and we've gone step by step through the story of Ruth. And so today I am prepared to begin in Ruth chapter 4, and we're going to pick up where we left off and continue the story, and we're going to finish today. We left off in Ruth chapter 3 with Boaz trying to get the right to marry Ruth and inherit everything that her husband owned. So he goes to the town gate, which is my first picture today. Starting in Ruth chapter 4, verse 1. It says, "Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat down there just as the guardian redeemer he had mentioned came along." So Boaz is sitting at the town gate, and basically in these days, the gate functioned basically like a courthouse would today. It was the place where they had legal actions and had things finalized and all of that. So this whole story happens at the gate today. And then my second picture today, and by the way guys, it's really windy. That's why I have to keep all my little things underneath this board so that they don't blow away. But my second picture is a park bench, because in Ruth 1:2, Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, "Sit here." So I kind of imagined like a park bench. The elders of the town, the people who are basically being witnesses to this legal action that Boaz is about to take at the town gate, are sitting on a bench and just observing what's about to happen. Now after Boaz got everything ready, he gathered witnesses and got to the right place and got ready to take legal action and try to get the right to marry Ruth. Basically, the guardian redeemer, the other man who was also trying to marry Ruth basically, but was more closely related to her, so he had the right to marry her. He came along, and Boaz and this other man, the Bible never names the other man, so I always think that's kind of interesting. But Boaz and the other man have a discussion, and Boaz basically says, "You can redeem all of Naomi and Ruth's husband's land and all that they owned, but you also have to redeem Ruth, the Moabite." And of course, whenever he says that, the other man is like, "Well, I can't redeem Ruth because my own inheritance would be in trouble." Because basically, Ruth being a Moabite is a terrible thing to their society. So his societal status would be greatly endangered and probably disappear if he redeemed Ruth and chose to marry her. Since Ruth is a Moabite, the man decides to let Boaz have Ruth because he doesn't want to marry a Moabite, because he knows that he'd be in trouble with all his friends and his family and just everybody, and they'd all look down upon him because Ruth was a Gentile, and that just meant a lot to these people. So, in order to give over the rights to Boaz to be able to marry Ruth, he had to give Boaz his sandal. Apparently that's how it worked in these days. It was like signing a contract or something, but instead of signing a contract, they would give their sandal to the other man. So the man, who is Ruth's relative, I know this gets kind of confusing for me when I'm talking about it, takes his sandal off and gives it to Boaz, and that's basically his way of saying, you can marry Ruth, she's yours now, you can inherit all of the land that her husband owned, and this is me saying to you that you have the legal right to do this. So this was like them signing a contract. So in the end, after everything that has happened to Ruth, Boaz and Ruth did get married, and they had a son. You see? It's a little baby. And they named him Obed. O-B-E-D. It's kind of an interesting name, but you know, I always thought that was interesting. So they had a little baby boy and named him Obed. So why does this even matter? Obviously, it's a good story that Ruth and Boaz did eventually get married, and Ruth went through all these hard times, and then in the end, her faithfulness rewarded her, and obviously that's a good story. But the reason this is included in the Bible, and the reason that it means so much more than just it's a good story, is because through Obed, Ruth and Boaz's son, would one day come Jesus, about 30 generations later, actually. So Ruth became the 30 greats grandmother of baby Jesus, and I have a tree because it's like his family tree. So, like it says that, let's see, Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of David. And from David, I believe it's like 28 generations until Jesus was born. It's really close to that anyway. So, it matters a lot. So I'm going to kind of just read y'all my conclusion through this whole thing. And I wrote, Ruth showed great character throughout her story. God used her to be a part in his plan, which would eventually save everyone. Ruth was rewarded by becoming a part of Jesus' family tree. Jesus came to save me and you. I love Ruth's ending because she never knew that Jesus would be born while she was alive. I mean, Jesus wasn't even born until like hundreds of years after she died, and yet her faithfulness was still used even then. And so I wrote, you never know how God will use your actions even long after your life. And I wonder, it's not that like God's going to use my faithfulness to make me the great-great-great-grandmother of Jesus or anything like that, but I do wonder if it's worth just having good character and making good decisions, because your decisions do matter, even if you don't realize it, and even if you never see the fruits that you sow, they matter. And so that's what I take away from this story, and that's why I love Ruth, because she encourages me to act like her and be faithful and have a good character, because I never know how it's going to affect somebody or how God's going to use it. There have been major changes in my life and the life of my family members recently, but I know that through our faith, everything is going to be all well. So for the last couple months, we've been working really hard to get moved down here to Florence. So that's why I haven't been posting very many videos the last couple months, because I've not had very much time. But now that we're down here, I'm excited to be able to share our journey with y'all, and I'm going to figure out how to do that, and that's just going to come out just whenever I can come up with it. And so thank y'all for watching today's video, and I hope you continue to watch videos, and I'm just excited to see where this goes.